Improper sizing for an HVAC system is one of the biggest reasons why a house can be uncomfortable. Here's how to make sure that you get the right HVAC size for your home. Let's dive into it. So the size of an HVAC system can be kind of confusing. We use a term called tonnage. The system does not weigh that much. But tonnage refers to how many BTUs that system has. And so we measure tonnage by, if a system has 12,000 BTUs, that equals 1 ton. And so if you have 24,000 BTU unit, that means you have a 2-ton system. And so tonnage can be confusing to understand, but whenever I'm referring to tonnage, I'm referring to how many BTUs does this system have the capacity to handle. What you want to do is you want to design that size of the system to match the heat load on that house. Your home can have a specific heat load during the summer and the winter time, and so you want to make sure that you match that tonnage to match the effective load on your home. You want to make sure that you're not sizing the system by square footage alone, because there are a lot of variables that come into play that can affect the heat load that happen on a seasonal basis. When a system is undersized, so the heat load on the house is really big, you've got a lot. Maybe in some of the variables could be, maybe it's an older home, maybe you lack insulation, you lack, it's not necessarily the most energy efficient house. And whenever I say that, that means the energy inside your home can leave very easily, and so or gain very quickly. And so that system can be undersized for your effective heat load that is on the home. So we'll talk in the terms of summertime. So during the summertime, it's really hot. Energy is being added to the house very quickly. That system, if it's undersized, is going to have a hard time removing that energy that's within the home and putting it outside. And so whenever you're sizing your system, if it is undersized, problems that you may have within the home is kind of inconsistency. So like let's say at night, is whenever it cools down a little bit easier, you're like, oh yeah, it works great. But whenever it gets above a certain temperature, that system's just going to run all day. It's going to have a really hard time keeping up based off of the heat load that's being added to your house. How do you know if your HVAC system is undersized in your home? Some symptoms that you may be experiencing is maybe hot or cold spots within certain parts of the house. You will also notice where during the summertime, it's if that system is running all the time. So if you hear it kicking on, and it's continuing, and you never hear it turn off, you're probably going to experience maybe some higher utility bills than what you'd anticipate, because that system just never shuts off. So I'm going to share a little bit of a story real quick. So I had a customer that I was dealing with. Her system was actually undersized for the home, and her utility bills were outlandish for the square footage of her house, and the electricity that she used for the home really wasn't matching what it should be for that specific size of home. And whenever we replaced the system, we sized that system appropriately for the heat load on that house and the result of that. And you would think, well, if you're increasing size, you're also increasing the amp draw that's on that bigger system, because it requires a little bit more energy to run and operate. But what actually happened is that system was able to run for the appropriate amount of time to cool that house down, and the result of that was that we were able to save her hundreds of dollars on her utility bill, because it was finally able to do what it was supposed to and get the house to a temperature that she enjoyed, and we were able to save her some money by sizing it correctly for the home. You may ask, hey, Colby, I don't think my system really runs long enough. I hear it turn off and on all day. It cools my house down, but my utility bill is still really high. I've got high humidity. My system turns off and on pretty frequently throughout the house. And so that's pretty indicative of the system being oversized for the heat load that is on your house. Oftentimes, whenever a system is oversized, because the general rule of thumb back in the day was like, hey, we'll just bump you up half a ton. Anyways, terrible idea, because that doesn't remove humidity from your house if you oversize it. So I don't want to oversize that system, because that creates more problems than whenever the system was undersized. Because the undersized system actually does a better job removing humidity from the home than a system that is oversized. And so if the system is oversized, some symptoms you may be experiencing is high humidity within the house. You may also be experiencing, like, during the winter time, maybe the furnace is too big for the home as well, where it's providing too much heat, and it dries the house out too much. And so you'll see your caulk lines on, like, the glue adhesives will start to crack and stuff like that. So if the humidity level doesn't stay maintained within the house, those are some symptoms that can happen if it's oversized. And then whenever the system is oversized, especially during the summertime, it'll turn off and on, which is called short cycling. So short cycling is kind of like, the easiest way I know how to explain it is like, okay, short cycling is one of the worst things that you can ever do to your system, and it's very similar to if you were working on, like, let's say you're going to go start your car in the morning. you turn the engine on, and then you don't let it run at all, and then you turn it off. And so very, very fast. And what that does is it doesn't allow for the oils that are within that compressor to effectively circulate through the system appropriately. And so it's very difficult on that system to short cycle. And so oversizing the system can result in premature breakdowns, the system not lasting nearly as long as what you want it to. Because at the end of the day, we want those systems to last, gosh, 15 to 20 years if they're sized right for the home, and everything it's a perfect install. And so that's what we want. That's what we want to shoot for. And so, but if it's oversized, it's going to break down more frequently than what you would want it to. You may ask yourself, well, Colby, how do I know that the contractor I'm using is not just sizing my system based off of square footage alone? Because I understand that you don't want the contractor to come in and just replace your equipment without really considering the effective heat load that's on the house. And so some things that I want you as a homeowner to be aware of is I want that contractor to come in and I want them to ask you questions. And those questions will be designed and really help point the contractor towards solving those problems. So if a contractor is not asking the appropriate questions about how's the system ran, does it turn off and on oftentimes? What is the square footage for the house? Do you feel like the system keeps up whenever it is running? Do you feel like it struggles throughout the day? Those are the questions that are super important that a contractor should be asking you, so that you know that contractor is not just going to come in and just and swap out the equipment without really solving your specific issues. You want to make sure that system is sized appropriately, because the size of the system matters a ton. It does. Using square footage to calculate the tonnage of your system is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to sizing your system appropriately for your house. And so I've actually got some really cool maps that I'm going to show you guys. So we've got our average temperature. This is our average temperature in the United States from 1991 to 2020. And so this kind of shows just a rough average across each kind of temperature zones. That heat load is going to be significantly more important if your average temperature is super high or super low. It just depends on your location. So another map that I like to use is our precipitation map to help show humidity levels across different zones as well. And so you've got really high temperatures down here, but you've got a lot of rain. And so it's like, okay, well, that increases the humidity level. So I may not have to necessarily size that. I may size that system differently, so that way it does have a longer run time. And so humidity level tells me a lot on how I need to size the system for the house. So we live in Oklahoma, and Oklahoma can vary as far as temperatures. During the summertime, we can have extremely hot temperatures during the summertime, and we can have a lot of rain. We've had months within the last 10 years where we had a month of rain, and so that increases the humidity level in the area. So if you look at the map, say, okay, well, as far as the different zones, the average temperature of that specific area, we're right in central Oklahoma, so we can vary very easily as far as the average throughout the summertime. And then we can also vary depending on the year. We can have high precipitation years, or we can have low precipitation years. And that is very difficult because it makes for very inconsistent temperature and humidity levels throughout each summer. And so we want to size that system for that average. And so we want to make sure that we're not sizing that system based off of the exception. And so, which is also very important. Do not size your system for the exception of the year. Please don't do that, because that can cause problems. You design the system for an exception, then oftentimes you're going to oversize your system, or you're going to undersize your system, and it's not going to be sized appropriately for the house. I always like to use those averages throughout the year to really dictate what needs to happen. So these maps are super helpful in understanding humidity and how your average temperature can play a really big role in the sizing of your system. But there are some other key factors that I really want to go into, which can also help size the system appropriately. And a lot of that is how the house was built. And so construction. Who was a contractor? What practices did they use to help make that house more energy efficient? And so homes that were made back in we'll say 1950s to early 2000s had different energy practices dictated by the EPA versus homes that were built from 2000, 2010, and then 2010 to 2020. And so the general direction that homes are being built at, the energy requirements of those construction bases are way different than what they were 50 years ago. And so you want to make sure that understand the age of the home that you live in can help you dictate what size the system is needed. And that also can help you understand, okay, well, what are some things that I can do for my house to one, make it more energy efficient? And so insulation, super important. Making sure windows are sealed, super important. You can go as far as doing window tinting, help reflect a lot of that heat that is gained by maybe it's a sun-facing window, and so maybe east or west. And so those are some things that you can do to help reduce the effective heat load on your house, so that you can size your system appropriately for that comfort level. A higher efficiency, energy efficient home is going to require a smaller unit. Obviously, a smaller system is going to help save utilities because it's going to use less electricity to operate that system. And so there's some things that you can do, some key factors to help improve your comfort inside your house. Key takeaways from this video. Square footage matters, but it's only the tip of the iceberg. There's other variables that you need to consider whenever sizing your system appropriately. Construction matters a lot. What type of practices did that construction company use to make sure that your house is energy efficient? Compared to construction, what are some things that you can do? Maybe you have an older house. What are some improvements that you can do to help drop your effective heat load that's on that house? And that will result in insulation, better windows. You get the point. Humidity. How much does it rain in the zone that you live in? Because that will dictate the size of the system that's needed to help remove that humidity from the house. And the last but not least, temperature. Make sure that whenever you're sizing your system, you size it for the average temperature throughout that summertime. You don't want to size it for the exception. You want to make sure that you size it for what the system is designed to do. It will last longer for you, and whenever it's designed appropriately for the house. And so make sure that you size the system, square footage, understand your construction type, understand what improvements that you can do to help reduce your heat load on the home, understand the humidity that's within the house and how much humidity do you have in your area, and then understand the temperature of the zone and climate that you live in. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope it was very informative, and I hope that if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us and put a comment down below, and we'll try to answer it as best we can. If you guys are in the Oklahoma City metro area and you need some 5-star service for an HVAC and plumbing company, we'd love to be your team. Scan this QR code to my left or your right, and have a fantastic day. Yard room and sun.